On the edge of a thick alien forest, John stood in awe, gazing at the wild landscape that surrounded him. The planet was unlike any Earth had ever seen. Towering trees, their trunks wide and covered in glowing moss, stretched far above him, their leaves swaying in a wind that seemed to whisper secrets in a language he couldn't understand. This was his first mission as an explorer for the United Earth Exploration Team, and it was a chance he had dreamed of for years. He carefully adjusted his backpack, making sure his equipment was secure. The air smelled fresh but with an odd sweetness, as if the planet itself was alive with a strange energy. As he ventured deeper into the forest, his foot caught on a thick vine, nearly making him trip. He quickly steadied himself, but then he froze. There was a noise, a sound he hadn't expected, a faint, pitiful whimper. Curious, John moved cautiously toward the source of the noise. It didn't take long before he saw what was causing it. Beneath a large fern partially hidden by the tall grass was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. Its tiny body, about the size of a cat, was covered in soft, pale blue skin that shimmered in the dim light filtering through the trees. Its large, round eyes were full of fear, and it was struggling to move. John's heart immediately went out to the creature. It was an alien hatchling, clearly injured. One of its small legs was twisted at an unnatural angle, and it let out a quiet whimper as it tried to drag itself forward. The sight of the defenseless creature was heartbreaking. Despite his training and his mission to study and observe, John couldn't just leave it alone. He knelt down gently, his heart racing with concern. "Hey there," he whispered softly, his voice as calm as he could make it. The hatchling blinked up at him, still clearly frightened, but it didn't run. Instead, it gave him a look, as if silently pleading for help. John reached out slowly, not wanting to scare it. He knew that first contact with any alien species had to be handled carefully. He moved with precision, not making any sudden movements. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." He gently placed his hand near the hatchling's side, and after a moment it allowed him to touch it. The soft skin was warm to the touch, and it didn't shy away. Carefully, John examined the injury. It was a nasty break. The leg was badly twisted, and the hatchling flinched when he touched it, clearly in pain. "We need to fix this," John murmured to himself, looking around for something to help. He spotted a small, sharp stone nearby and, using the edge of his survival knife, carefully cut away some vines from the surrounding plants. He fashioned a makeshift splint, using the vine to wrap around the hatchling's leg and secure it as best as he could. The hatchling didn't resist, and after a few moments it let out a soft, contented sound, as if relieved. John smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He knew this wasn't a permanent fix, but it would at least ease the pain and give the hatchling a chance to recover. His training had prepared him for many things, but he hadn't expected this. A bond had already begun to form between them, one that was strange yet undeniable. He glanced around, wondering if there were any signs of other creatures in the area, particularly any predators. The last thing he wanted was to draw attention, to himself or to the hatchling, but the forest was eerily silent. It was as if the entire planet was holding its breath. Suddenly, there was a rustling in the trees. John tensed, instinctively reaching for his communicator. But before he could raise it to his mouth, a low growl echoed from behind him. His heart skipped a beat as he turned, eyes widening in shock. Emerging from the dense underbrush was a massive, terrifying creature. It was much larger than anything he had seen on Earth, with thick armored skin and sharp, jagged claws that seemed to glisten in the dim light. Its eyes locked onto the hatchling, and for a moment John froze. He knew the creature had to be a predator. "Stay still," John whispered under his breath. He had to think fast. He couldn't let this creature find the hatchling. If it attacked, there was no way he'd be able to protect it. His hand moved instinctively to his survival weapon, but before he could reach it, the creature let out a bone-chilling roar. The hatchling whimpered in fear. John's eyes darted between the creature and the small alien, a sense of panic rising within him. He couldn't allow the hatchling to be hurt. He had to act now. Without thinking, John lunged toward the hatchling, scooping it into his arms. He held it tightly, shielding it with his body as he quickly retreated behind a large rock. The creature advanced, its massive form shaking the ground with each step. John's heart raced, but he didn't back down. "Come on, stay calm," he muttered to himself, feeling the weight of the hatchling in his arms. "We're not done yet." The creature took a few more steps forward, but then it stopped, sniffing the air. It let out another growl before it turned and disappeared back into the forest, leaving John and the hatchling unharmed. John let out a deep breath of relief. His heart was still pounding in his chest, but they were safe, at least for now. He looked down at the hatchling in his arms. Its eyes, though still wide with fear, seemed to trust him. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had saved its life. Now he was responsible for it. "This is only the beginning," John muttered quietly, his voice filled with determination. He had no idea what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. His life had just changed forever. The sun had set behind the distant mountains, casting a soft golden glow over the alien forest. The air was still almost too quiet, as John sat beside the small fire he had built to keep warm. His eyes kept darting to the hatchling in his arms, still sleeping peacefully. It was hard to believe how much his life had changed in the last few hours. What had started as a routine exploration mission had turned into something far more unexpected. As he watched the flickering flames, he tried to make sense of everything. The hatchling was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Its soft blue skin, large dark eyes, and the way it seemed to trust him so quickly. Despite the danger they had narrowly escaped, John felt a strange bond with the creature. He knew he couldn't leave it behind. But now, as the hatchling slept, John wondered what was next. Would the forest's creatures come looking for the hatchling? And what about its family? Would they come for it? He didn't know how he could protect it forever, but he also couldn't imagine abandoning it now. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke through his thoughts. John froze, his heart racing. He didn't move, listening carefully. There it was again. Soft footsteps on the ground coming from the direction of the forest. He instinctively grabbed his weapon, but then he stopped himself. The creature he had encountered earlier had been terrifying, but this felt different. It wasn't the growl of a predator. It was something else, something larger. John's breath hitched as he saw movement in the shadows. A tall figure emerged from the trees, slowly stepping into the firelight. The figure was unlike any human he had ever seen. The creature was much larger than him, with skin that shimmered like the hatchling's but in a deep, rich shade of violet. Its eyes were enormous, glowing faintly in the dim light. This was no ordinary alien. It was unmistakably the mother of the hatchling he had saved. John stood up slowly, unsure of what to expect. The alien woman, if that's what she was powerful looking, with a calm and regal presence. Her sharp features were softened by a strange, otherworldly beauty, her face radiating an air of quiet authority. She didn't appear threatening, but John couldn't shake the feeling that she was not someone he could easily control or understand. Pew, Mother's gaze landed on him, her eyes narrowing as she took in the sight of her child in his arms. She stepped forward, slowly but deliberately, never breaking eye contact. John instinctively took a step back, unsure of how to react. The mother stopped in front of him, her long limbs like graceful tendrils moving with fluidity. She stood tall, easily a foot taller than him, and her presence was overwhelming. John's heart beat faster as he looked up at her. She spoke in a language he couldn't understand, her voice a deep, melodic hum. It wasn't an aggressive sound, but something about it felt like it carried immense weight. John didn't know what she was saying, but there was no mistaking the tone. She wasn't asking. She was commanding. The hatchling stirred in his arms, its large eyes blinking open at the sound of its mother's voice. It let out a soft whine, and to John's surprise, the mother's expression softened. She bent down and placed her hand on the hatchling's head, gently caressing it as the child let out a series of happy, cooing sounds. John felt a pang of jealousy. He had never been able to protect anyone the way this mother protected her child. He admired her strength, but at the same time, a deep uncertainty washed over him. What did she want from him? The mother straightened up, and for the first time, she took her eyes off the hatchling and looked directly at John. Her gaze was steady and unblinking. It was almost as if she was studying him, measuring him in a way that made him feel small and insignificant. Without warning, she reached out and gently took the hatchling from John's arms, cradling it against her chest. The shift was subtle, but unmistakable. The energy between them had changed. The hatchling seemed comforted by its mother's touch, nuzzling against her. The mother turned her gaze back to John, her expression unreadable. Then, in a surprisingly soft tone, she spoke again, her words slow and deliberate. "You have saved my child," she said, her voice low and powerful. John didn't understand the exact words, but the meaning was clear. There was gratitude in her eyes, but something else too, a deep sense of obligation. John hesitated, unsure of what to do next. He had no idea how to communicate with this alien being, but somehow he understood that she was offering something. She wasn't asking for thanks or offering a simple "you're welcome." She was giving him a choice. The mother tilted her head slightly and looked at him expectantly. She raised her hand, gesturing toward the stars above. For a moment, John thought she might be showing him the way back to the ship, but the look in her eyes told him it was something more. A thought slowly crept into his mind. She was inviting him. The idea was absurd. He was a human and she was an alien. He had saved her child, yes, but now she was offering him something he couldn't comprehend. A part of him wanted to refuse, to explain that he didn't belong here. But another part of him felt drawn to her, drawn to the power and mystery that surrounded her. Why? He found himself asking, his voice barely above a whisper. The mother's gaze softened. She spoke again, her words gentle but firm. Though John didn't understand, he could tell that her offer was not just out of gratitude. There was something deeper in her words, something he wasn't yet ready to grasp. All he knew for certain was that his life had just changed, and the galaxy's mysteries had just begun to unfold before him. The forest was silent again, save for the gentle rustle of leaves in the soft breeze. John stood still, his thoughts racing as the alien mother cradled her hatchling in her arms. The air around him felt heavy, charged with an energy he couldn't quite explain. He had never experienced anything like this before. A strange part of him felt comforted by her presence, despite the overwhelming differences between their species. The mother didn't speak again. Instead, she simply held her child, gazing at him intently, her eyes never leaving his face. John felt a mixture of awe and confusion. There was a communication happening between them, but it wasn't in words. It was something more primal, something that transcended language. He could sense it in the way she looked at him, the way her posture shifted. It wasn't hostility. No, it was something entirely different. But what was it? The hatchling stirred in its mother's arms, making small, contented noises as it shifted, nuzzling closer to her chest. The mother smiled, a soft, knowing smile that seemed to say everything John needed to know. The hatchling was safe. It had healed, and it had found comfort. And perhaps it had found a protector in him. The silence stretched on until the mother's gaze finally softened. She looked toward the ground, then back to John and made a slow, deliberate motion with her hand. She was offering him something. John felt a strange pull toward her. It was clear now that the alien mother wasn't simply thanking him for saving her child. She was offering him something more, something far deeper than mere gratitude. It was as if she was extending an invitation into her world, a world that was as alien to him as it was ancient. Her voice broke the silence, but this time, the tone was softer, almost coaxing. She spoke slowly, her words measured, as though trying to make herself understood. John didn't fully understand the alien language, but the meaning was clear enough. "You are now family," she said, her eyes never leaving his. She didn't need to say more for John to understand. She was offering him a place in their world. She was offering him a bond with her and her child, A bond that wasn't born out of obligation but out of something much stronger, something that only the mother understood fully. John's heart pounded in his chest. This was absurd. He had barely known the hatchling for a few hours. He wasn't part of their world. He wasn't even from the same planet. How could he possibly belong to them? How could he accept an invitation that seemed so foreign, so impossible? But even as he thought these things, he couldn't deny the connection that had formed between him and the hatchling. He had saved it, yes, but something deeper had happened during that rescue. Something that made him feel like more than just a passing observer. He felt needed. He felt that perhaps he could be more than just a lone explorer in the vast universe. Maybe, just maybe, he could be part of something greater. The mother, sensing his hesitation, gave a small, understanding nod. She stepped forward slowly and placed a hand on his shoulder. It wasn't a forceful gesture, it was soft and welcoming. It was a sign of peace, of acceptance. Her hand was warm against his skin, and for the first time since arriving on this strange world, John didn't feel alone. The hatchling, now fully awake, squirmed in its mother's arms, its large eyes focused on John. It reached out a small, delicate hand toward him as though wanting to touch him, to connect with him. The sight made John's heart swell with emotion. He had saved this creature's life, and now it was offering him a piece of its trust. The bond between them had deepened in ways he couldn't explain. John looked back at the mother. She was still watching him, her expression calm and patient. The invitation was there, plain as day. She wasn't forcing him. She wasn't demanding anything. She was simply offering him a choice, one that would change everything for him. Why me? John found himself asking. It was the question that had been gnawing at the back of his mind since he had first seen the hatchling. Why had she chosen him? He wasn't anyone special. He was just a human, a simple explorer from Earth. The mother tilted her head slightly, her gaze thoughtful. Then in a voice that was somehow both gentle and firm, she spoke again, her words slower this time, as if she were trying to make her meaning clearer. You saved my child. And you saved more than just its life, she said. You gave it hope. You gave it trust. You gave it something the universe had taken away. John was taken aback. He hadn't thought of it that way. He had acted on instinct, yes, but he hadn't realized the depth of his actions. He had saved the hatchling, but in doing so he had shown it compassion, something this alien world had clearly lacked. And in doing so, perhaps he had earned more than just the gratitude of a mother. Perhaps he had earned her respect. For the first time, John realized that this wasn't just about the hatchling. This was about something far bigger. This was about becoming a part of something he had never dreamed possible. It was about finding a family where he least expected it. The mother stepped back slightly, giving him space, her hands still gently cradling her child. The hatchling's tiny fingers curled around its mother's arm, and John could see the bond between them, strong, unbreakable. It was the same bond she was offering him. A part of him wanted to refuse. A part of him wanted to turn and walk away, back to the safety of his ship and the life he knew. But another part of him, a part he hadn't known existed, felt something stir within him. The call to stay, to become part of this strange alien family, was too strong to ignore. Will you stay? The mother asked, her voice soft but filled with something that could only be described as hope. John took a deep breath. He knew what he had to do. Yes, he said, his voice steady. I'll stay. The days that followed were unlike anything John had ever experienced. The mother of the hatchling, whose name he had learned was Vera, led him through the alien world, showing him parts of the planet he never could have imagined. The forest was a living thing, full of strange and vibrant colors, with plants and creatures that seemed to breathe in time with the rhythm of the planet itself. The ground was soft underfoot, and the air always carried a faint, sweet scent, like flowers and rain all at once. Though John had been trained for exploration, nothing had prepared him for the sheer beauty of this alien world. But more than that, nothing had prepared him for what came next. Vera's behavior towards him had changed since he had accepted her offer to stay. At first, she had been kind but reserved, watching him closely, as if testing his sincerity. Now, she seemed to expect something more from him. She had stopped speaking to him in the soft, gentle tone she had used before. Instead, her words had become firm, decisive, as if they carried more weight than simple conversation. It wasn't long before John understood what she wanted. Vera wasn't just inviting him to stay, she was testing him. The bond she had offered was not without its challenges, and John was beginning to realize that his decision to stay was only the beginning of something much deeper. One afternoon, after a long walk through the dense woods, Vera led John to a large clearing. It was vast, with towering trees forming a circle around a patch of vibrant green grass. In the center of the clearing was a large, flat stone, almost like a platform. John's eyes widened as he looked at it. There was something ancient about the place, as though it had been used for generations. Vera motioned for him to approach the stone, and John hesitated for a moment. He had no idea what was about to happen, but the serious look on Vera's face made it clear that this was no ordinary moment. "Stand," she said simply, her voice still as commanding as before. John obeyed, stepping cautiously toward the stone platform. As he approached, he noticed strange markings etched into its surface. They seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, and as his hand brushed against them, he felt a strange warmth pass through him. A connection, almost as if the stone itself was alive. Vara watched him closely. She had not said a word, but her eyes never left him, and John felt the weight of her gaze on him. It was as if she were studying him, waiting for him to do something. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke again. "You have chosen to stay, but that choice comes with a price. To join our family, you must prove your loyalty, prove your strength, prove that you are worthy." John's heart skipped a beat. He had known that there would be challenges, but this was something else. It felt like a test, and the stakes were higher than he had anticipated. "Prove your loyalty?" he asked, his voice quiet but filled with uncertainty. Vara nodded. "The bond between our kind is not something given lightly. You saved my hatchling, yes, but now you must show us that you are willing to give as much as you have received. You must prove that you are willing to protect the family you have chosen, as much as you protect yourself." John swallowed hard. He had thought that agreeing to stay would be enough, but it seemed that the path to truly belonging was not as simple as he had hoped. He had not been prepared for this. How could he prove himself? What could he possibly do to show that he was worthy of joining their family? "Do not be afraid," Vera said, her voice softening. "This is not a fight you cannot win. This is a test of heart." John took a deep breath and nodded. He had already come so far. He had accepted the challenge of staying, of becoming part, of something he had never imagined. Now, it seemed, was the time to truly show he could be more than just an observer. He had to prove that he was worthy of their trust. Vera stepped aside, gesturing for him to stand on the stone platform. John climbed onto it, the strange warmth of the stone still lingering under his feet. The moment he stepped on the platform, the glowing markings flared brighter, and a low hum began to vibrate through the air. John felt a tingling sensation across his skin, almost as if the stone were alive, reacting to his presence. "This is a test of heart, of loyalty." "Vera," said her voice echoing around the clearing, "the stone will show you your inner strength, the choices you've made. It will reflect the true nature of your heart. Do not fear it." John closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing. He had no idea what was about to happen, but he knew one thing for sure. He was committed. He would prove that he belonged. The moment he closed his eyes, everything changed. The air around him seemed to warp, and suddenly, images began to appear in his mind. He saw flashes of his past, his life on Earth, his family, his struggles, his dreams of exploring the stars. He saw the moments when he had felt most alone, when he had doubted himself, and when he had found the courage to continue despite everything. But Then the images shifted. He saw the hatchling again, lying helpless on the forest floor. He saw the terrifying creature lurking in the shadows. And then he saw himself, reaching out, saving the hatchling, taking a step toward the unknown. The image of him protecting the creature, putting its safety above his own, filled him with a new sense of purpose. The stone pulsed with energy as the images continued, showing him moments of compassion, courage, and resolve. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. John opened his eyes to find the clearing still and silent once more. Vera was standing in front of him, her eyes searching his face. "What did you see?" she asked quietly. John stood there for a moment, processing everything he had just experienced. It felt as though his very soul had been laid bare, exposed to something greater than himself. "I saw myself," he said, his voice steady. "I saw the choices I've made, the moments when I've chosen to protect others, to step into the unknown, even when I was afraid. I saw the strength I didn't know I had." Vara's expression softened, and for the first time, she gave him a nod of approval. "Then you are ready." The days following John's test of loyalty were quiet, but the peace was filled with unspoken tension. Vara had accepted his commitment, and for the first time since he had arrived on the planet, John felt a sense of calm that he hadn't experienced before. His heart still beat fast at times when he thought about the test he had undergone, but something had changed. He had faced a challenge, and he had proven himself. The path ahead felt clearer, even though he didn't fully understand where it would lead. Every day he spent time with the hatchling and Vara. The hatchling, who had now been named Ilra, was growing quickly. It no longer needed constant care and was starting to explore its surroundings with curiosity. John couldn't help but smile at the sight of the small creature waddling through the alien grass, its wide eyes filled with wonder. He had always thought of himself as a solitary explorer, someone who moved through the universe without attachment. But now, in this strange new world, he felt like he was part of something greater. Vara, too, had become more than just a leader or mother to him. Over time, she showed him parts of her world that were full of beauty and mystery. She taught him about her people, their history, and the connection they shared with the planet. She spoke of a long-standing tradition of harmony, one that united her kind with the very earth beneath their feet. The more she shared with him, the more John understood the gravity of the decision he had made. It wasn't just about saving Ilra anymore. He had been invited into something far deeper, a family, a world, a way of life that he couldn't have imagined before. One evening, as the twin moons of the planet rose high in the sky, Vara led John and Ilra to a peaceful valley. The air was cool, and the stars seemed to shine brighter than ever. The valley was alive with soft sounds, the rustle of plants, the distant chirps of nocturnal creatures, and the faint hum of the wind. Vara stopped at the edge of a tranquil pool of water, its surface reflecting the glowing stars above. She turned to John, her expression serious but kind. "This is the place where our people come to make important decisions," she said. "It is a sacred place, a place where we ask the earth for guidance." John raised an eyebrow, not fully understanding what she meant. "What do you mean? Are you asking the planet for help?" Vara nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "In our culture, we believe that the earth speaks to us through the energy it gives off. When we have a decision to make, we come here to listen, to be sure that our choice aligns with the balance of life. It is not a decision we take lightly." John felt a ripple of nervousness run through him. Vara's words had hinted at something more significant, but he still wasn't sure what the true meaning of this moment was. "John," Vara continued, her voice soft yet filled with authority, "you have proven yourself worthy to join our family. You have shown courage, compassion, and a willingness to protect those you care about. But this is not just about us. This is about the future. Your future." John listened closely, his heart beginning to race as he realized where this conversation was heading. Vara wasn't simply offering him a place in her family anymore. She was offering him a place in her world, a place in the future of their species. The choice I ask of you now is this. Will you stay with us, join our people, and be part of the next chapter of our story? Vara asked, her eyes meeting his with a calm certainty. John's mind began to spin. He had already accepted the responsibility of caring for Ilra, but now Vara was asking him for something much larger. He wasn't just being asked to stay, he was being asked to become part of their way of life, to fully integrate into their society, their culture, and their future. For a long moment, John remained silent, unsure of what to say. This wasn't a decision he could make lightly. His life back on Earth seemed so distant now. The mission he had come on had been about exploration, but this was something deeper. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He had been accepted into something that would shape the rest of his life. As he looked at Vara and Ilra, something clicked inside him. He had always been drawn to the idea of exploring the unknown, of pushing beyond the boundaries of human understanding. But this was different. It wasn't just about discovery anymore, it was about belonging. It was about connection, and that was something he had never truly experienced before. John took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. I've never thought of myself as someone who could be part of something this big. I've always been alone, wandering through the universe, never settling anywhere. But with you and Ilra, I don't feel like an outsider. I feel like I found something that matters. Vara studied him carefully as if waiting for him to finish. I've made my decision, John said, his voice steady. I want to stay. I want to be part of your world. I want to be part of your family. Vara's eyes softened with approval, and she nodded slowly, a sense of pride and satisfaction evident in her expression. You are one of us now, she said simply. John's heart swelled with emotion. The weight of his decision finally settled in, but it didn't feel like a burden. It felt right. He had found something here, something more than just a place to stay. He had found a purpose. As the night grew deeper, and the stars continued to twinkle above, John felt a sense of peace wash over him. The unknown no longer felt intimidating. He wasn't just an explorer now, he was a member of something bigger than himself. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, he knew he wasn't alone anymore. Ilra, the hatchling he had saved, had grown more fond of him, following him wherever he went. The bond between them was unmistakable. In the mornings, Ilra would playfully tug at his sleeves, urging him to join in games of chase through the tall, swaying grasses. In the evenings, it would curl up beside him, its tiny body warm and comforting as they both watched the sunset. John could feel the hatchling's trust growing with each passing day. It was a trust that had been earned, and in return, John began to care for the creature as if it were his own. But as the days passed, he could feel that there was still something missing, a sensed thought of himself as an outsider, someone who didn't belong. But now, he saw that his journey here wasn't just about him adapting to their world. It was about them adapting to him too. He wasn't simply a visitor or a guest. He was a part of their future, a link between two worlds, two ways of life that had never before intersected. What do you want me to do? John asked, his voice full of a new sense of determination. Vara looked out at the vast landscape before them, the rolling hills, the tall trees, and the rivers that cut through the land like veins of life. She raised her hand, gesturing toward the horizon. There are many things you can do, John. You can teach us the ways of your people, your knowledge, your history, your values. You can help us understand the universe in ways we have not yet considered. And we can teach you the wisdom of the planet, how to live in harmony with it, how to protect it. John felt a surge of excitement. This wasn't just a new life. This was an opportunity to bring something back to Earth, to make a difference, to build a bridge between two worlds. He could see it now, the future he was being invited into. It wasn't easy, it wouldn't be simple, but it was a future filled with possibilities. "I'll do it," John said, his voice steady with conviction. "I'll learn from you and I'll share what I can. I'll help in any way I can." Vera's eyes softened with pride, and she nodded slowly. "We are glad to have you with us, John. You have already made a difference in our lives. Now let us help you find yours." As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the valley, John felt a sense of peace settle within him. The uncertainty that had plagued him for so long had begun to fade. He was no longer an outsider. He was home, and with the love and support of this alien family, he knew that he had found his true purpose. The days passed quietly in the alien world, and John's life had settled into a rhythm. He spent his time learning from Vara and her people, exploring the planet's landscapes and bonding with Ilra, the hatchling he had saved. Though every day brought new discoveries, there was a lingering sense of something more waiting for him. A final step, a true beginning that would solidify his place in this new world. John had always been someone who valued independence, who sought his own path. But here, in the heart of this strange planet, he had found something he never expected: belonging. He was no longer the lone explorer drifting between worlds. He was part of something larger, something far beyond his understanding when he had first arrived. One afternoon, as the two moons rose above the distant hills casting a soft glow across the land, Vara invited John to walk with her. They moved in silence, the only sounds the soft crunch of the ground beneath their feet and the gentle rustling of the wind through the trees. John had learned much from her in the weeks since he had made his decision to stay. But today, something was different. He could sense the weight of the moment in the air. Vara's demeanor had shifted, becoming more solemn, more serious. Her usual calm and collected self seemed to hold a deeper meaning, as if she was preparing to speak of something important. They reached the edge of a cliff that overlooked a vast valley below. The view was breathtaking. John had seen many beautiful places in his travels, but this landscape felt different. It felt alive, full of promise and history, as if it had been waiting for him. Vara stopped at the edge of the cliff, her gaze fixed on the horizon. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "You have come a long way, John," she said, her voice steady but soft. "You have proven yourself not only to us, but to yourself. You have chosen to stay, to learn, and to become part of this world. And for that we are grateful." John listened closely, a sense of unease creeping into his chest. He didn't know what Vara was leading up to, but he knew that whatever it was important. His heart began to race. "But," Vara continued, turning to face him, "there
is one more thing I must ask of you." John's breath caught in his throat. He had known there was more to this journey, more to his decision.
But now, the reality of it was settling in. What was she asking of him? "You have become one of us in every way, John," Vara said, her eyes filled with sincerity. "You have learned our ways, shared in our lives, and shown us the strength of your spirit. But now I ask you to take one final step. Will you stand with us as family in the eyes of the universe?" John stood still, his mind racing. The question was simple, but the answer was not. This was more than just a formality. This was a decision that would bind him to them forever. Vara's eyes softened. She could see the hesitation in his face, the uncertainty that still lingered in his heart. She understood. She knew that the decision he faced was not an easy one. But the bond they had formed was real, and the family they offered him was one he could not turn away from. "You are a part of our family now, John," she said quietly. "But if you choose to walk away, if you choose to leave, we will not hold it against you. You have the freedom to make your own path, just as you always have, but understand that, should you stay, you will be bound to us in a way that no one else can be. You will be more than just a visitor. You will be one of us with all the rights, responsibilities, and joys that come with it." John looked at her, then at Ilra, who was sitting nearby, watching them both with wide eyes. The hatchling had become More than just a creature he had saved. It had become a symbol of his own transformation, a reminder of the bond he had forged. He had given his heart to this family, and in return, they had given him something he never thought he'd have. Purpose. For the first time in his life, John felt like he was truly part of something, not just as an outsider, not as a visitor, but as a member of a family that was not bound by blood, but by shared experience, trust, and loyalty. He looked at Vara again, his decision beginning to settle in his heart. He had been afraid of commitment, of becoming too attached to a place, a people. But now, standing on the edge of the cliff looking out at the vast world that lay before him, he knew that this was where he belonged. "Yes," John said, his voice clear and strong. "I will stay. I will stand with you, with all of you, as family." Vera smiled, a rare and warm expression that filled John's heart with pride. She reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of acceptance, of finality. Then, "You are truly one of us," she said, "and from this moment on we are bound together. In this world, in this life, and in the future we will build together." John took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision settle into his soul. He had chosen a path that would shape his life in ways he couldn't yet fully understand. But one thing was certain. He was no longer a stranger in this world. He was home. As the moons hung high in the sky, casting their gentle light across the land, John felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long, and the future was uncertain, but for the first time in his life, he felt ready. Ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ready to build a future not alone but with those who had become his family.